Nia Chen's fingers moved with practiced precision across the quantum relay matrix, the crystalline components humming softly in Laboratory 7's artificial light. Kepler Station was her sanctuary, a remote research outpost orbiting the gas, giant Tertius where she could focus on her engineering work, without the political tensions plaguing the core worlds. "Good morning, Nia." She looked up to see Zoran approaching. With his characteristic grace, the Vilaxian's pale blue skin caught the laboratory's ambient glow, his 3 pairs of arms carrying tool cases while navigating the equipment-filled corridor. His large, dark eyes held that familiar warmth that had become the highlight of her daily routine over the past 8 months. "You're early again," she said, setting down her calibration device. "Environmental systems aren't scheduled for maintenance until 1000. Zoran's mouth curved in what she'd learned was his species equivalent of a smile. "I finished Section C ahead of schedule. Thought I might observe your work, if you don't mind." This had become their comfortable routine. Zoran would complete his maintenance tasks with characteristic efficiency, then spend his remaining time in her laboratory, ostensibly learning human engineering techniques, but increasingly just enjoying each other's company. "Actually, I could use your perspective," Nia said, moving aside to give him access to her workstation. "The quantum resonance is fluctuating strangely." As Zoran leaned over the console, Nia caught his subtle scent, something like ozone and fresh rainfall. His proximity sent a familiar flutter through her chest, something she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. "This pattern," he said, his harmonic voice taking on a focused tone, "resembles the fluctuations we see in Vilaxian meditation crystals during emotional resonance. You think the quantum field is responding to biological, emotional states? It's possible. Our technology incorporates bio-emotional feedback systems." Their heads were close now, both focused on the scrolling data, when Zoran turned to look at her. Their faces were mere inches apart. Nia could see the intricate patterns of darker blue that traced along his neck like natural tattoos. "Nia," he said softly, and she heard something new in his voice. The moment shattered as the station's emergency communication system blared to life. Captain Hayes's voice filled the laboratory. "All personnel report to assigned stations immediately. Priority communications from Earth Command and the Galactic Council. This is not a drill." 2 hours later, the full scope of the crisis became clear. The Galactic Council had voted for comprehensive sanctions against humanity. All human personnel were being recalled to human space. All non-humans working for human organizations were being recalled to their respective worlds. All human personnel will depart on Transport 7 at 2300 hours tomorrow, Captain Hayes announced to the assembled crew. Non-human personnel will be collected within 72 hours. Nia felt her heart sink. She looked across the briefing room and found Zoran's eyes already on her. The same devastating understanding reflected in his expression. They would have less than 2 days together. After the briefing, Nia found Zoran in Laboratory 7, organizing tools with mechanical precision. "You don't have to help with shutdown procedures," she said quietly. "I want to be here," he replied without looking up. "These may be our last hours together." The simple statement hung between them, acknowledgement of feelings they'd been dancing around for months. Nia really looked at him then, the elegant lines of his form, the graceful coordination of his multiple arms, the subtle luminescence of his skin. "Zoran," she began, uncertain how to continue. He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes intense. "I know we're different species. I know the complications. But these past months, working beside you, seeing your passion for discovery, I feel it too," Nia whispered. "I've been trying to convince myself it was just friendship." But she stepped closer. "But I think I'm falling in love with you." Zoran's expression softened, his upper hands reaching out to gently cup her face. "On my world, we believe love transcends physical form. The connection between souls is what matters." His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "I've been in love with you for months, Nia Chen." She leaned into his touch. "What are we going to do? In 36 hours, you'll be heading to Vilaxa, and I'll be going to Earth. We could have these 36 hours, Zoran said quietly. "We could stop pretending that duty matters more than what we feel." Looking into his eyes, she realized the pain of separation was inevitable now. The only choice was whether to face it with beautiful memories or regret. Yes, she said simply. They spent their remaining time together, sharing stories and dreams while working side by side on shutdown procedures. Every completed task brought them closer to the end, but the work gave them an excuse to stay near each other. Take this, Zoran said that final evening, offering her a small crystalline device, a memory crystal from Vilaxa, tuned to my biosignature. You'll be able to sense what I'm feeling. Wherever we are. Nia took the warm crystal carefully. Will you sense me too? Yes. If you're open to the connection. He showed her a matching crystal on a chain around his neck. They were my grandmother's. The final boarding call echoed through the corridors. At the docking bay entrance, they stopped. This is not an ending, Zoran said firmly, holding her close. Love like ours doesn't disappear because of politics. We'll find each other again. How can you be sure? Because the alternative is unacceptable. He pressed his forehead against hers. Because the universe brought us together once. Nia kissed him, their first and last kiss, tasting salt and something indefinably sweet. When they parted, bioluminescent patterns flowed across his skin. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Remember that. Whatever happens, she walked through the airlock, forcing herself not to look back until she found a window on Transport 7. Zoran stood at the docking bay entrance, watching as the ship undocked and began its journey toward human space. As Kepler station grew smaller against the star field, the memory crystal at her throat pulsed with warmth, carrying alien love across the growing void. This felt less like an ending than a pause in an unfinished story. Love, she decided, was stronger than politics. Somehow, someday, she would prove it. Marcus Webb pressed his face against the viewport of transport vessel Meridian, watching the last of the evacuation ships disappear into hyperspace. His breath fogged the transparent aluminum as he searched desperately for any sign of transport vessel Aurora, but the starfield remained empty except for the distant glow of the Altarian system's twin suns. She's not coming back, whispered Elena Rodriguez, the elderly archaeologist sitting beside him. Aurora jumped to hyperspace 20 minutes ago. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to push down the panic that had been building in his chest for the past 6 hours. Jenna Torres, the woman he'd planned to marry, the brilliant botanist who'd spent the last 3 years cataloging xenoflora across 17 different worlds, was somewhere in hyperspace heading toward the outer rim colonies. He was aboard a ship bound for Earth's core systems. The galaxy had never felt so vast. The evacuation from New Altair had been chaos. When the Galactic Council's sanctions took effect, thousands of human civilians had exactly 72 hours to abandon their homes, their research, their lives. Marcus had been in the commercial district, trying to arrange transport for his botanical specimens when the emergency sirens began wailing. Jenna had been at the research station, 15 kilometers away, desperately trying to preserve her life's work. I'll meet you at Transport Alpha, had been their last communication before the emergency channels were overwhelmed. But when Marcus arrived at the designated evacuation point, he found only confusion and fear. Transport Alpha had been redirected. Transport Beta was overloaded. Random assignments were made based on available space and destination capacity. Marcus Webb, the harried evacuation coordinator, had called out, Meridian, departing for Seoul. System in 30 minutes. Wait, Marcus had protested. I need to find Jenna Torres. She's supposed to be. No time for personal requests. Move to your assigned transport or forfeit your evacuation slot. Now, 18 hours into their journey through hyperspace, Marcus sat in the cramped passenger compartment surrounded by 200 other displaced humans, all carrying their own stories of separation and loss. Some had lost spouses, others children. Many had left behind work that represented decades of dedication. The air recycling systems worked overtime to handle the emotional tension that seemed to permeate every corridor. Marcus pulled out his personal communicator, a high-end model he'd purchased for coordinating his interstellar trading business. During normal times, it could maintain quantum encrypted channels across several light years. But these weren't normal times, and the device showed nothing but static on all frequencies. Trying to reach someone? Asked Dr. James Park, a cybernetics researcher who'd introduced himself earlier. He gestured to his own communicator, equally useless in their current situation. My partner, she's on another transport, but I don't know which one or where it's heading. The evacuation was poorly organized. Dr. Park said diplomatically, I heard some ships went to the frontier colonies, others to Earth, a few to the independent systems. No central coordination. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The independent systems could mean anywhere from the Centauri colonies to the outer spiral territories. Some of those regions were so remote that communication with Earth took weeks. Even under normal circumstances, there has to be a way, Marcus muttered. Studying his communicator's technical specifications, these quantum transmitters are designed for interstellar commerce. They should be able to punch through hyperspace interference with the right modifications. Dr. Park leaned over with interest. You're thinking of boosting the signal? That would require serious technical expertise. I've been a trader for 8 years. You learn to fix everything yourself when you're operating solo between star systems. Marcus was already opening the device's casing with a multi-tool. The question is whether I can amplify the output without burning out the quantum matrix. Word of Marcus's project spread quickly through the passenger compartment. Within an hour, he found himself surrounded by a small group of engineers, scientists, and technicians, all eager to contribute their expertise to solving the communication problem. Dr. Sarah Kim, a physicist from the Altarian Institute, suggested rerouting power from non-essential personal devices. Thomas Chen, a software engineer, offered to write signal amplification protocols. If we can establish even a basic communication network between the evacuation ships, Dr. Kim explained as they worked, we might be able to create a database of passenger manifests. People could leave messages for separated family members. The work gave Marcus purpose beyond his own desperate need to contact Jenna. As they carefully modified their communicators and linked them together, he listened to the stories of others searching for loved ones. Maria Santos was trying to reach her teenage daughter. Dr. Robert Lee needed to contact his elderly parents. Each person carried the same mixture of hope and fear that gnawed at Marcus's stomach. 36 hours into their journey, their makeshift communication array achieved its first breakthrough. A faint signal, heavily distorted but unmistakably artificial, crackled through the speakers they'd rigged to the quantum transmitters. Transport vessel Aurora, destination Kepler colony. Passenger manifest includes. The signal faded before they could hear more, but Marcus's heart leaped. Aurora, that was one of the ships that had left New Altair. The name matched what some evacuees remembered hearing. During the chaotic boarding process, Kepler colony, Dr. Kim said thoughtfully. That's in the outer rim. About 2 weeks travel from Earth at standard commercial speeds. Can we respond? Marcus asked urgently. Can we transmit back to them? Thomas Chen shook his head. We're receiving on quantum echoes, basically picking up spillover from their internal communications. Our signal isn't strong enough to reach them directly. Over. The following days, their communication network grew more sophisticated. They intercepted fragments of transmissions from multiple evacuation ships, slowly building a picture of where the scattered human diaspora was heading. Transport vessel Aurora was definitely carrying botanical researchers to Kepler colony. Transport vessel New Horizon was bound for the Centauri system with families and civilian contractors. Transport vessel Independence was taking military families to the fortress world of Gibraltar Station. Each intercepted transmission brought hope to someone in their group, but also heartbreak for those who heard no word of their missing loved ones. Marcus found himself becoming the unofficial coordinator of their growing communication effort, helping people craft messages they hoped would eventually reach their destinations. On the 4th day of their journey, Marcus was adjusting the quantum matrix when a clear voice suddenly emerged from the static, calling any human vessel. This is Dr. Jenna Torres aboard Transport Aurora. If anyone can hear this, please relay a message to Marcus Webb. Marcus, if you're listening, I'm safe. We're heading to Kepler colony to establish botanical research stations. I love you, and I'll find a way to contact you when we arrive. Please, don't give up on us. The entire passenger compartment fell silent as Jenna's voice echoed through their improvised Speakers. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he frantically worked to boost their transmitter. Output. Jenna, he shouted into the communicator. Jenna, this is Marcus. I'm here. I'm on Transport Meridian heading to Earth. But the connection was one way. And after several minutes of desperate attempts to respond, he had to accept that she couldn't. Hear him. We'll keep monitoring, Dr. Kim said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. And when we reach our destinations, we'll make sure everyone knows how to contact each other. Marcus nodded, clutching the communicator that had become his lifeline to the woman he loved. Across the void of hyperspace, Jenna was alive and thinking of him. She was heading to Kepler Colony, a specific destination he could work with. For the remaining days of their journey to Earth, Marcus helped coordinate an ambitious project. Their passenger group was creating a comprehensive database of separated families and loved ones, complete with destinations and contact information. They would upload it to every communication network they could access once they reached Earth, ensuring that the human diaspora could begin reconnecting despite the vast distances between them. When Transport Meridian finally emerged from hyperspace, near Earth, Marcus pressed his face against the viewport once more. The blue-green world of humanity's origin had never looked so small or so distant from the life he'd built among the stars, but somewhere in the outer rim. Jenna was looking up at different stars and thinking of him. Love, Marcus realized, wasn't diminished by distance. If anything, the void between them made what they shared feel more precious, more worth fighting for. As soon as he reached Earth's surface, he would begin planning his journey to Kepler Colony. The galaxy might have driven humanity apart, but it couldn't break the bonds that truly mattered. River Nakamura stood in the crystal gardens of New Ander, watching the morning light refract through the towering geometric structures that the Androrians had grown over centuries. The living crystal formations hummed softly in harmonious resonance, a sound that had become as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. During her 5 years as cultural liaison to the Androrian collective. Still beautiful, even knowing we have to leave it behind, said a deep voice behind her. River turned to see Dex Morrison approaching along the garden's luminescent pathway, his security uniform somehow managing to look both official and rumpled. After the sleepless nights they'd all been enduring, his dark eyes, usually sharp with professional alertness, carried a weariness that made her heart ache. Any word from the council? She asked, though she could read the answer in his expression. The evacuation order stands. All human personnel, civilian and military, are to report for transport departure in 18 hours. Dex stopped beside her, close enough that she could smell his familiar cologne mixed with the stress sweat of impossible decisions. No exceptions, no delays. River closed her eyes, listening to the crystal formations sing their eternal song. When she'd first arrived on New Ander as a young anthropologist fresh from university, she'd been overwhelmed by the alien beauty of this world. The Androrians had welcomed her with cautious curiosity, slowly allowing her into their complex social structures, their art forms, their spiritual practices. She'd become more than a liaison. She'd become a bridge between two very different ways of understanding the universe. The Androrians are devastated, she said quietly. Elder Zixra came to me this morning. They want to preserve the cultural exchange programs, the art collaborations, everything we've built together. Dex moved closer, his hand finding hers with the easy familiarity of their 2-year relationship. River, you know I understand what this place means to you, what your work here means. But the orders are clear. What if they weren't? River turned to face him fully. What if there was another option? Something in her tone made Dex's professional mask slip, revealing the man underneath who'd fallen in love with her passion for bridging worlds. What are you talking about? River pulled a small crystal device from her pocket, its surface pulsing with soft blue light. This morning, the collective made me an offer. They want to establish a sanctuary, a place where human culture can be preserved and studied. Art, literature, music, philosophy. They're calling it the Archive of Bridges. Dex stared at the crystal, understanding dawning in his expression. They want you to stay, not just me. They're offering protection to any humans who want to remain and help preserve our cultural heritage. Elder Zixra says they have isolated colonies where we could live safely. Away from the political upheaval, we could continue the work we started. Here, the crystal formations around them seemed to pulse brighter, as if responding to the emotional tension between the two humans. Dex ran his free hand through his hair. A gesture River had learned meant he was struggling with competing loyalties. "River," he said carefully, "you're talking about defying direct evacuation orders. You're talking about staying behind in potentially hostile territory with no backup, no support from Earth. I'm talking about saving something beautiful from being destroyed by politics." River's voice carried the passion that had first drawn Dex to her. "Everything we've worked for, Dex, 5 years of building understanding between species, art collaborations that have enriched both our cultures, scientific exchanges that have advanced knowledge in fields we never even knew existed. And I'm talking about keeping you alive," Dex replied, his professional composure cracking. "Do you think I haven't been watching the intelligence reports? Corvan raiders are already moving into territories where human protection has been withdrawn. Anti-human sentiment is rising on dozens of worlds. The Androrians might be sympathetic now. But what happens when political pressure mounts? What happens when the Council decides that harboring humans is too dangerous?" River felt tears building in her eyes, not from sadness, but from frustration. How could she make him understand that some things were worth the risk? The Androrians aren't like that. You know them, Dex. You've worked with their security forces. They value cultural preservation above political expedience. I've worked with them professionally, Dex said. But I've also seen how quickly political situations can change. How quickly allies can become enemies when survival is at stake. They stood in silence for a moment, the crystal gardens singing around them while two people who loved each other faced an impossible choice. River understood Dex's position, his training, his oath. His ingrained sense of duty all demanded that he follow orders and protect human lives through evacuation. But she also knew that some kinds of death weren't physical. "Come with me," she said suddenly. Dex looked at her in shock. "What?" "Come with me. Stay here. Help me build the archive of bridges." River gripped his hands tightly. "You're not just military. Dex, you understand culture, diplomacy, the importance of what we've been doing here. The Androrians respect you. They'd welcome you as part of the sanctuary." "River, I can't." "My duty." "Your duty to whom?" She interrupted. "To Earth Command. Who's abandoning everything we've built out here? To political leaders who are letting fear drive them into isolation? Or to the principles that made you want to protect people in the first place?" Dex was quiet for a long moment, staring at the crystal device in River's hand. She could see the war playing out behind his eyes, duty versus love, orders versus conscience, safety versus purpose. "If I stay," he said slowly, "I'll be listed as a deserter. My family will face questions, possibly sanctions. My career, my reputation, everything I've worked for in the service will be destroyed. And if I go," River replied, "I'll watch everything I've worked for here be destroyed. The cultural exchange programs, the art collaborations, the friendships that took years to build. All of it will disappear as if it never mattered." The crystal formations around them pulsed in complex patterns, and River realized they were responding to the emotional resonance of their conversation. The Androrians' living architecture was designed to be sensitive to the feelings of those within it, a technology that had always seemed like magic to her human sensibilities. "We could build something beautiful here," she said softly, "not just preserving human culture, but creating new forms of art, new ways of understanding the universe through cooperation between species. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Dex lifted his hand to touch her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "You're asking me to choose between everything I've been trained to believe in and everything I've come to believe in since meeting you. I'm asking you to choose what matters most to you." The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted their moment. Elder Zixra emerged from between the crystal formations, their crystalline form catching and refracting the garden's light in spectacular patterns. The Androrian's presence was both alien and comforting, a reminder of the friendships that had grown between species over years of patient cooperation. "Honored River," Zixra spoke in their musical language. which River's translation implant rendered in warm, feminine tones. The Council of Elders has completed their preparations. The sanctuary awaits your decision. River looked at the elder, then at Dex, then at the crystal device that represented a chance to preserve something precious in an increasingly fractured galaxy. How long do we have to decide? Dex asked. The human transports depart in 17 hours. Zixra replied. After that, the sanctuary will be sealed and hidden. We cannot risk exposure to those who might use our protection against us. 17 hours to choose between duty and love, between safety and purpose, between the known path and the uncertain future. River squeezed Dex's hand, feeling the weight of the decision they had to make together. The crystal gardens sang around them, a harmony of alien beauty and human emotion, while two hearts tried to find their way to the same destination across the vast divide of competing loyalties. Luna Park floated in the zero-gravity observation deck of colony ship Resilience, her sketchpad drifting beside her as she watched the fourth potential homeworld grow larger. Through the massive viewport, the planet below was a swirl of green and blue, seemingly perfect for human colonization. But she'd learned not to trust first impressions. This was the third world they'd surveyed in as many months, and each had revealed fatal flaws once the probe teams completed their analysis. Too much radiation from the binary star system, she murmured to herself, already knowing what the reports would say. She'd developed an eye for these things during their long journey through uncharted space. The soft hiss of the airlock drew her attention, and she turned to see a familiar figure pulling himself through the hatch with practiced ease. Tobias Gray moved through zero-G with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent years working in space, his engineer's coveralls somehow managing to look neat. Despite the demanding work of keeping a colony ship operational, Luna's heart did that familiar skip that had been happening every time she'd encountered him over the past 6 months. Aboard Resilience, 3 years since their messy breakup on Kepler Station, and seeing him still affected her more than she cared to admit. Mind if I share the view? Tobias asked, his voice carefully neutral. It's a big observation deck, Luna replied, gesturing vaguely at the space around them. Plenty of room. Tobias pushed off from the wall and floated toward the viewport, maintaining a respectful distance from where Luna had anchored herself. To a handrail, they hung in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the planet rotate slowly beneath them. Radiation levels are too high, Tobias said eventually. The binary stars are pumping out gamma rays that would cook anything on the surface. Within a few generations, I figured as much, Luna said, adding a few quick lines to her sketch. The atmospheric glow was too intense in the purple spectrum. I've been drawing these worlds long enough to recognize the warning signs. Tobias glanced at her sketchpad with genuine curiosity. You've been documenting the journey? Luna nodded, feeling self-conscious about her artistic project. Someone should record what we're seeing out here. The failed worlds, the near misses, the hope and disappointment. Historians will want to know what humanity went through to find its new home. May I? Tobias gestured toward the sketchpad. Luna hesitated, then handed it over. The drawings chronicled their exodus from human space, evacuation ships departing Earth, overcrowded transports, the gradual organization of the colony fleet, and dozens of worlds that had looked promising from a distance but proved uninhabitable. Her artistic eye had captured not just the physical journey, but the emotional weight of humanity's search for belonging. These are incredible, Tobias said softly, pausing at a sketch of children playing in the ship's recreation area. You've captured something I don't think the official records will show. What's that? Hope, he said simply. Despite everything we've lost, despite all the worlds that haven't worked out, people are still building lives, still finding joy. In small moments, Luna felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. This was the Tobias she'd fallen in love with years ago. The man who could see beauty in technical specifications and find meaning in the smallest human gestures. The engineering reports don't capture that perspective, she said carefully. No, they don't. Tobias handed back the sketchpad. I write about structural integrity, life support efficiency, resource allocation, important things. But he trailed off, staring at the planet below, But I'm starting to think the real story of this journey isn't in the technical data. It's in how people are adapting, growing, finding new ways to be human when everything familiar has been taken away. Luna studied his profile, noting the lines of stress around his eyes that hadn't been there during their time together. The responsibility of keeping 20,000 people alive in space was weighing on him, just as the responsibility of documenting their journey was weighing on her. "Is that why you came here tonight?" she asked. To get perspective, Tobias was quiet for a moment. "I came here because I saw you enter the observation deck, and I realized I've been avoiding you for 6 months. The honesty in his voice caught Luna off guard. "Avoiding me? After everything that happened between us on Kepler station, I thought it would be easier if we just—" He gestured helplessly. "But we're both here on the same ship, working toward the same goal. Maybe it's time we talked about what went wrong." Luna felt her throat tighten. Their breakup had been painful and complicated, driven by career opportunities pulling them to different worlds and their inability to compromise on a shared future. "Tobias, I don't know if reopening old wounds is— I was an idiot," he said simply. "I was so focused on my career track, on proving myself as an engineer, that I didn't fight for us when it mattered. We both made mistakes," Luna replied quietly. "I was just as stubborn about my artistic residency on Vega Prime. I thought following my passion was more important than our relationship. And now here we are," Tobias said with a rueful smile, "both following the same passion, helping humanity find a new home." Luna looked at him floating there in the starlight. This man who'd once been the center of her universe, the boy she'd loved, had matured into someone carrying enormous responsibility with quiet grace. The sharp edges of ambition that had driven them apart had been smoothed by years of service to others. "We're different people now," she said. Double quotes. "Yes," he agreed. "The question is whether these different people might be compatible." Luna felt her heart racing. "Tobias, I know it's complicated," he said quickly. "I know we have history, baggage, all the reasons it didn't work before. But Luna, watching you work these past months, seeing how you've documented our journey with such compassion and insight, I remember why I fell in love with you, and I remember why it scared me so much," Luna admitted. "Loving you meant the possibility of compromising everything I thought I wanted." "What if what we want has changed?" Tobias asked. "What if what we've been through has taught us different priorities?" Luna looked at her sketchpad, filled with images of humanity in transition, finding new ways to build community in the vast emptiness of space. Every drawing told a story of adaptation, of people discovering that home wasn't a place, but something you carried with you. "I don't want to hurt you again," she said softly. "And I don't want to lose you again," Tobias replied. "But maybe this time we could try building something together instead of choosing between competing dreams." Luna reached out and took his hand, feeling the familiar calluses from years of technical work, the steady warmth that had once been her anchor. "What did you have in mind?" "We're going to find a world eventually," Tobias said. "When we do, humanity will need to build not just cities and infrastructure, but culture, art, meaning, engineers and artists working together to create something beautiful. A partnership," Luna said. "A partnership," Tobias agreed. "Professional and personal, if you're willing." Luna squeezed his hand, looking out at the star-filled void that held their future somewhere in its depths. "We have to take it slow, learn who we are now before trying to be who we were all the time in space," Tobias said with a smile that made her remember why she'd loved him. As the radiation-soaked planet fell away behind them, and Resilience set course for the next star system, Luna and Tobias floated together in the observation deck, no longer avoiding each other but not yet sure what they were moving toward. Sometimes the most important journeys happened not between worlds, but between two hearts learning to trust again. Home, Luna realized, wasn't something you found. It was something you built, one careful choice at a time. Sage Winters stood at the edge of New Eden's first permanent settlement, watching the sunrise paint the alien landscape in shades of gold and amber. 6 months since the colony ships had landed on this world at the galaxy's edge, and the sight still took her breath away. 2 moons hung in the lavender sky above rolling hills covered in something that wasn't quite grass, but served the same purpose. swaying in winds that carried the scent of possibilities. Behind her, the sounds of construction filled the morning air, prefabricated buildings rising into more permanent structures, the hum of fusion generators, the laughter of children discovering that this strange new world had flowers that chimed like bells. When touched by morning dew, as the settlement's education coordinator, Sage had spent weeks preparing lesson plans that incorporated their new environment, teaching human children to find wonder in alien beauty. Beautiful morning for the supply run. Sage turned to see Phoenix Lee approaching along the settlement's main path, her pilot's jacket slung over one shoulder, and her dark hair still damp from the communal showers. Phoenix had the easy confidence of someone who'd spent years navigating between star systems. But there was something softer in her manner since they'd landed on New Eden, as if the planet's peaceful atmosphere was working its way into her bones. "You're heading out again?" Sage asked, noting the supply manifest Phoenix carried. "Didn't you just get back from surveying the southern continent? Mining team found rare minerals yesterday," Phoenix replied with a grin, "the kind that make really good semiconductor components. Colony administration wants samples transported to the orbital station for detailed analysis." Sage felt a familiar flutter in her stomach at Phoenix's smile. They'd been dancing around each other for weeks. Now, ever since the pilot had volunteered to transport school supplies to the outlying research stations, their conversations had grown longer, their shared meals more frequent. But neither had quite found the courage to acknowledge the growing attraction between them. "How long will you be gone this time?" Sage asked, trying to keep her tone casual. "Just overnight." Though Phoenix hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "I was wondering if you might want to come along, see the planet from above, get a teacher's perspective on what the kids might find interesting for future field trips." Sage's heart skipped. "In your ship, it's a two-seater transport, very safe, and the view of the mountain ranges from altitude is incredible." Phoenix's confidence faltered slightly. "Unless you're afraid of flying." "I'm not afraid," Sage said quickly. "I've just never seen New Eden from the air." "Then it's time you did." 2 hours later, Sage found herself strapped into the co-pilot seat of Phoenix's transport ship, watching the settlement shrink below them as they lifted off from the landing pad. The vessel was smaller than the colony ships, but felt solid and responsive under Phoenix's expert control. "There," Phoenix said, banking left to give Sage a better view. "The singing forests." Sage gasped at the sight below. Vast groves of crystalline trees stretched across the landscape, their branches catching the sunlight and creating cascades of refracted light that danced across the forest floor. When the wind moved through them, they produced haunting melodies that could be heard even from their altitude. "The children are going to love field trips there," Sage murmured, already imagining lesson plans about crystalline geology and acoustic phenomena. "Wait until you see what's ahead," Phoenix said with obvious pleasure in sharing her discoveries. As they flew deeper into the continent's interior, Phoenix pointed out geological formations that defied Earth logic, valleys where the native plant life grew in perfect spirals, and a waterfall that fell upward due to some quirk of mineral magnetism in the cliff face. With each new wonder, Sage found herself watching Phoenix as much as the landscape, noting how the pilot's eyes lit up. When describing her discoveries, "You really love this world," Sage observed. "I love exploration," Phoenix replied. "For years, I flew cargo routes between established colonies, following the same hyperspace lanes, landing at the same ports. This is different. Every flight reveals something new, something that's never been seen by human eyes before. Like we're writing the first chapter of human presence here." "Exactly." Phoenix glanced at her with warm approval. "You understand." They landed at the mining camp as the sun reached its zenith, both sons of New Eden's binary system, painting the landscape in brilliant white light. While Phoenix supervised the loading of mineral samples, Sage explored the camp, talking with the geologists and miners about their work. She was fascinated by their stories of discovery, the way this new world challenged their assumptions about planetary formation and mineral distribution. "Your girlfriend's quite the teacher," commented Dr. Wesley Kumar, the chief geologist, as they watched Sage discussing rock formations with a group of miners. She's got them thinking about geology as art instead of just resource extraction. Phoenix felt heat rise in her cheeks. She's not my girlfriend. We're just flying together to remote mining camps for educational purposes. Dr. Kumar grinned. Sure, none of my business. But you should know she's been asking a lot of questions about flight safety, pilot training requirements, whether civilians can learn basic navigation. Sounds like someone's thinking about spending more time in the air. Phoenix watched Sage gesturing enthusiastically at a mineral formation, her whole body animated by the joy of discovery and teaching. Something warm settled in Phoenix's chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced since before humanity's exodus from galactic civilization. That evening, they made camp under New Eden's star-filled sky, with no atmospheric pollution and minimal light interference from the settlement. The view of the galaxy was breathtaking. Phoenix set up their portable shelter while Sage prepared a simple meal from their supply rations. Phoenix, Sage said as they sat beside their small campfire, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever miss it? The old life, flying between established worlds, being part of something larger than just one planet?" Phoenix considered the question, staring up at the alien constellations. Sometimes. There was security in those trade routes, knowing exactly where you were going and what to expect when you got there. She paused. But there's something to be said for building something completely new, for being part of humanity's fresh start, even if it means giving up the stars. Who says we're giving up the stars? Phoenix gestured at the sky above them. We're just approaching them differently. Instead of being junior members in someone else's galactic community, we're building our own path forward. Sage moved closer on the log they were sharing. I keep thinking about the children in my classes. They're the first generation that will know this world as home. Instead of remembering somewhere else, they'll grow up thinking of these crystal forests and singing mountains as normal. And what will you teach them about the galaxy we left behind? That sometimes you have to lose something to find something better, Sage said softly. That love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about having the courage to start over. Phoenix felt her heart racing as she realized they weren't just talking about educational philosophy anymore. Sage, I've been thinking about you, Sage said, her voice barely above a whisper, about us, about what it means to build a new life in a place where everything is possible. Phoenix reached over and took Sage's hand, marveling at how perfectly their fingers fit together. I've been thinking about you too, about how much brighter this world looks when I'm seeing it through your eyes. I'd like to learn to fly, Sage said suddenly. I'd like to explore this world with you, to see what we can discover together. I'd like that too, Phoenix replied. I'd like to teach you everything I know about navigation, about reading weather patterns, about finding beauty in the space between destinations. As the 2 moons of New Eden rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the alien landscape, Phoenix and Sage discovered that home wasn't just a place you found. It was something you built with another person, one shared sunrise at a time. When they returned to the settlement the next day, they carried more than mineral samples. They carried the beginning of a love story that would grow alongside humanity's new civilization. Proof that even in exile, even after losing everything familiar, people could still find each other across the vastness of space and choose to build something beautiful together. New Eden stretched before them, vast with possibility, while the hearts learned that sometimes the greatest adventures began not with leaving home, but with deciding to create one.